Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Oh, welcome back, everybody. Something really important to talk about. I would even say, maybe even call it an epidemic at this point, of anxiety and stress in our country. People are dealing with so much stress, not managing it that well. And if you remember I've heard it since I was a kid, stress kills. Well, it does. It does. And if it doesn't, it makes you very ill. And you might not even know that that's why you're ill. We're going to talk about that today. She is the founder of Healthy Mindful Self. She's also somebody that helps people with guided meditations and so much more, helping them heal. And she's also, I'm going to say, she's an expert when it comes to medication with a vast pharmaceutical background. And she's back with us. Dr. Lisa Nezneski is on the program. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Steve. And you?
Doing well. I am going to say that I relate to this stress thing. And even before we begin, I want to share, because we're there. I had a lot of stress in the last week, and it got to the point where it kicked up an ulcer that I had like 6 years ago that's been pretty much gone. And I had to take a day off because I just was feeling like, oh, and then I got a cold. So, I'm guessing that my immune system was compromised because of the stress. It's like kick them when they're down. So, and
Yes,
that's,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling a little better, enough at least to come into work today.
Yeah, all good. I feel great today. But it was just,
Yeah.
it took, yesterday was the first day after a few days. Well, first it was the ulcer thing that kind of flared up, and then just from stress, and then, a cold, which lasted only 3 days. But I just got more sleep and then it went away. But point here is, I'm not the example. I'm just sharing because I believe there it is. What we're just about to talk about today
Oh,
is
absolutely.
stress, what it does.
Yes. Yes, exactly. You mentioned that you had a few days worth of stress where your body spoke to you in that weak point. And if we know what our weak point is, our body will, and pay attention to it, our body will speak to us.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you paid attention, you made a course correction, you took a day off, you took care of yourself. And honestly, a 3-day cold is pretty darn good. Your immune system bounced back relatively quickly. So well done. But had you not taken that day off and pushed through, you would have had the normal 5 to 7 days of head cold.
Yeah.
So
And by the way, it was full congestion. It wasn't like, a little teeny tiny cold. It was like, oh, like I feel fatigued, sore throat and all of it. But to your point, when I got those signs, the ulcer thing, I was actually wondering, I wonder if this is going to be worse than it has in the past, because it was pretty substantial after all this time of being dormant, but it was lack of sleep, stress, and just letting it get to your body.
yes, exactly. So paying attention is so important, that awareness. So that's the mindfulness component, paying
Mm.
attention to what your body's saying. But one of the major statistics that I've been looking into stress, because I'm working on a new program, um, 70, 77% of Americans are stressed right now. That's over 2/3. Over 3 out of 4 people are experiencing major stressors. And it's no wonder with, inflation and with post-COVID and banks are closing. I mean, it's the amount of stress that's happening is just
Yeah.
endemic, is I think the word you used, endemic
Endemic. Okay. Yeah.
in the society. Yeah.
Even
And
before the stress thing, I want to share that in my circles and talking to people and, everything that I'm connected to, anxiety seems to be at an all-time high. So I've seen that for months, maybe a year, but now we know why, that it's coming from stress. That's probably leading to a lot of it. And then the number, 70 something percent, it's like mind boggling.
absolutely, absolutely. So every 3 people that you see out of 4 as you're walking down the street is having some stressor in their life.
Wow. Mm.
1/3 of the people experiencing stress have major extreme stress. And, when I was going through my divorce, the first 48 to 72 hours of the separation, um, that I would say was the most extreme stress that I've ever had in my life. I've had a few episodes from stress leading me to the emergency room, but it wasn't as bad as that point when everything that I thought about my marriage I found was untrue. So it fell apart relatively quickly. And spiritually, they say your core values are blown up. So you've got nothing to stand on, and you're just basically kind of floating along. And it
Hmm.
was very upending for me. So I understand how that feels to be in extreme stress. It could be someone in the family's diagnosed with a major illness. It may not necessarily even be your illness. It could be someone that you love and care about.
Sure.
But those extreme stressors, you know, it will take its toll on your body. And I think that's probably why I ended up with my adrenal problem, because I just pushed through so many things over the years. And poor little gland was trying to help me out. So,
Yeah.
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 So, but you do need to take care of your adrenal glands, and vitamin C is one of the major,
Hmm.
major supplements that will help with stress and also with particularly your adrenal glands. So make sure that you're getting enough vitamin C.
I want to share with that. Well, one thing, Lisa, um, what you described went down the same road, marriage wise.
Yeah.
So big stressor there. And still dealing with parts of that now. And what you said, the hospital, when the ulcer flared up for me 6 years or so ago, it was not enough sleep, 3 jobs. And one of them I took on myself because it was a career advancement, but monetarily it really didn't make sense. But I thought it was a good thing. Renovated a backyard and all of this family, everything going on at once. Um, I was at the beach on my birthday and I just said, I'm going to the hospital. And for a guy to say that, usually that doesn't
Wow.
happen. And I just felt from all of the stress, not knowing what it was, which makes it even worse when it comes to an ulcer because you're thinking, and that stresses you out. I felt like my blood pressure, normally low, was like my eyes were going to pop out of my head from the
Sure.
stress, and I literally went to the hospital. So yeah, to your point, it can send you, and it was just stress, nothing else, nothing whatsoever. It's just stress, and it's amazing what it can
Exactly.
do. With the vitamin C thing, I'm always
Mhm.
cautious with that because it can irritate your stomach because it's acid,
Exactly.
correct?
That's right. So a buffered vitamin C would be best for someone with ulcers.
What
There are
what is
forms.
what is that?
I'm blanking on the name of the most popular one, but it will say buffered vitamin C, like
Gen
buffered aspirin, like
Oh,
there's a coating around it so that there's a literal buffer between the acid and your stomach lining so that it gets to the small intestine.
wow. I didn't even know that existed. So
Yes. Yes.
interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could experiment with various ones, like there's that emergency that's fizzy. You could try that and see if,
Emergency. Right. Okay.
yes, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I've been a fan of that product.
Wow.
I was I was in I was in Denver. I flew into Denver, and I'm very susceptible to mountain sickness. So my first bout of mountain sickness, I saw this vitamin C there that was in the packets. I'd never seen it before, and
Hmm.
I've been hooked on it ever since. And this is probably since 97 or 98. So that's a product that you could try, because you can mix it into water, you can mix it into Gatorade, you can mix it into something that's not quite so
Hmm.
and you look at the various flavors so to see. And I think because it's fizzy that it doesn't upset my stomach as much as straight old ascorbic acid would. Yeah.
Can we go back to the adrenal glands and why they're so essential to keep them happy when it comes to minimizing stress?
Well, the adrenal glands, adrenaline is
Ah,
the hormone that
ah,
from there. Yes, adrenaline. When you say you're running on adrenaline, if you're
wow.
chugging down energy drinks, they're forcing your little adrenal gland to pump out more adrenaline and more and more and more, just blasting it with things that stimulate it, like caffeine, for example.
Sure.
So yeah, you've got to take care of them. You've only got two of them. I've only got one. So,
Wow.
so really being careful in how I'm managing my stress because I only have one.
How would you know that you may have a challenge or compromised adrenal gland situation?
Well, it's relatively rare, like most of the things I eventually get. Um, my blood pressure was very, very high,
Okay.
and it was absolutely not responding to any medications. And I was taking medications of last resort, and they made me absolutely miserable. And they were just sort of bridges until I could have the surgery. But
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I mean, if you're not responding to the normal um, types of medications for blood pressure control, that would be one indicator that you are in fact having a problem with your adrenal gland. Now, the other extent mine was overactive. There's not a lot of clear clinical evidence. In other words, double blind controlled randomized trials on what's called adrenal fatigue. In other words, it's pushed to the point where it's just not as efficient anymore. There's a lot of lay literature on it. There's a lot of case reports on it, but there have been no real studies because you really can't treat it with medications. And the
Hmm.
majority of the studies that go on are sponsored by pharmaceuticals companies. So I'm learning more as I'm going along because I want to make sure that that one gland that I do have is as healthy as possible. So if you're feeling really tired and that you're can't really get up in the morning, you need a nap in the afternoon, there's a good chance that there's something, maybe it's your thyroid or it's your adrenal. These are all endocrine glands, and I would see a good endocrinologist about that.
Would you say, or how confident are you in, and you're pretty in tune with your body, and of course, because of your background health, would you say that there's a pretty good chance that you beat on your adrenal glands from that stress you endured?
Oh yeah, for
Okay.
years and years and years of
Uh,
pushing myself beyond the state of exhaustion. Yeah, and getting up the next day and doing it over again, over and over for many years. Yeah.
it's we don't realize it until we realize it. And
Well, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. In my case, if mom didn't work, the family didn't eat. So it was, a huge amount of pressure to make sure that there was a steady and stable income. And for 10 of those years, I was self-employed. Um, I worked for a university as a faculty member, and then I immediately went to work for myself after those 10 years and tripled my income. So it was easy to leave the university tenured position. People ask me, why would you leave a tenured position? Well, it just wasn't doing it for me. I loved
Mm.
teaching. I still teach a lot, but that particular situation allowed me to grow it to the point where I thought I can do this on my own, which I did for about 10 years. And then family circumstances changed again, very stressful changes. Um, so I went back to work in a hospital and eventually went into the consulting world because I was as 10 years of self-employment, I was a consultant. So then I went to work for a consulting company and yeah, haven't kind of looked back at that. So
Oh wow. Okay,
that's
so
kind of,
are you with a consulting company now in addition to doing your own thing?
yes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Huh. And you can still work from home.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Well, we've talked about in past episodes that there's a good and there's a bad to that, where in your situation where you had lived, you were isolated from just about everybody. So working at home, great, except, you have that situation. But I got to believe by and large, less stress working from home in some regards for the most part.
Yes, even though that particular situation was stressful, the working from home part was the least stressful of everything that I was going through at that point in time. For me, I I used to get up very early in the morning and start working around 4 o'clock in the morning so that I would have a lot of put my day together before I woke up the family and got them out the door in the morning. So I had a good 3, 4 hours of work in before everybody was out the door. And I got into a habit of getting up early like that. And so even now I'll get up early, I'll do work. And then when I need to punch in, I'm doing that as well. So it just sort of was the routine. And, here I am. Let's see, it was November 1st. So we're coming up almost on April 1st. So that's about 5 months after surgery. I'm just starting to feel myself.
Mm,
Took a
wow.
long, yeah, yeah. So I'm able to do work in those ways. I'm able to get up in the morning with a clear head and work for a couple hours and then do some more work. But I know now how better to manage my stress, and I'm not overdoing it. And that's the point. I mean, one of the things I'm working on besides this stress presentation is that a new book called Toxic Productivity, because you can really force yourself to be productive to the detriment of your own physical health. And that's really I think we need to acknowledge that. I feel now that at my age, with the amount of experience in the working world that I have, that I need to make sure that younger generations don't do what I did.
Yeah. And interestingly, with younger generations, I think they get it in
Yeah,
terms of it's not all about work. It's
right.
it's quality of life. Um, and millennials and before got a bad rap for that because they put their foot down and said, no, no, we're not going to do it. And that's why Google years ago, maybe 10, installed cafes and game rooms and healthcare and babysitting, everything in the facility in California because they saw it. I've experienced this, by the way. I used to get up at 3:54 a.m. every day for decades, and that beats on you in
Yes,
terms
it
of
does.
stress because you're not
Yeah.
getting really quality sleep. But would you feel that when it comes to stress, once you get wrapped up in it, it's like the snowball down the hill that just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you don't realize it when you're in it? And a lot of that is because you don't have the clarity you need to do certain things and move your life in the right direction because you're now it's getting more and more and more and more, and you're just wrapped up in it, and you don't realize it until your body says, "Hello, you got a problem there. Take care of it."
Exactly. Someone once told me it's like you're trying to read the label from inside the bottle.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So when it's happening to you, you sometimes don't recognize it until you get that major life event where you end up in the emergency room
Yeah.
and start to make a course correction. But yeah, so I think, over the years that since subsequent years, I've learned a lot of different techniques in helping people to unwind that stress. Not only with the mindfulness, there could be some supplements and other things that you could do. So this new program, Get Your Health, Vitality, and Peace of Mind Back, is an 8-week program that really takes some deep dive into what's causing the stress, what's important to you, and to what changes do you need to make, and how can I more or less help you through those changes. You'll be doing the hard work, Steve,
Mm.
but I can facilitate that and make it a little easier for you.
Lisa, do you find that people sometimes don't even know why they're stressed out?
I think if you close your eyes and ask your heart, you'll know immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah, you might not have it up here, but your heart knows.
I agree. I agree. It's usually pretty clear. Well, we don't listen. We just
There
continue
you
doing
go.
life and don't take care of it or say, nah, it's not that bad. Or, that's kind of stressful. You know what? I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to get back to that and I'll fix that. So it's not going to be as stressful. But when you're in it, like you said, inside the bottle, trying to read the label from the inside, you're not seeing the big picture because, well, call it this. You're in the you're going around and around and around.
Right,
The
right,
typhoon.
exactly. Exactly. And those whirlpools that you're talking about, they can be, once you get caught in, it's like it's sort of like riptide, when you're
Yeah.
swimming at the beach and you get pulled out. When you get into a stress cycle, unless you do something drastic to break it, it will continue, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And that's
Yeah,
what you don't know until you know, until when you experience it, because
right.
it's almost as if you say to yourself, I'm gonna move forward. It's no problem. I've got this. I've got this, but you don't have it. After a while, it's gonna have you. It's
Mm.
And that's, I think, why so many of us are having health issues in this country because of stress. Like I can't believe that number. 2/3 of us. Unbelievable. Believable, but unbelievable.
Right. And then the other really shocking statistic is that illnesses in general, over 90% of them have a stress related component.
Wow.
So even though you may not think that your illness is stress related, stress could be contributing to making your illness worse.
I have to believe in this country, we probably have the most stress out of any others. I just, when you take a look at some European countries where they take 2 months vacation and that's the norm, that's
Yeah.
not, well, I've been
No.
working 40 years and I can take no, 2 months, enjoy that, and that's just the lifestyle that others have that we don't see that or we can't do it in many regards. And then we get caught up in it. Then we talk about our healthcare system, which is even more stress.
Well, exactly. I mean, we're talking about external and internal factors, but now you're going to go get yourself taken care of. And that's a whole nother level of stress where when you get, I've been dealing with one of my customers, and she's trying to see a neurologist. And first of all, the clinic was closed, if you will, to new patients. So she ran into a wall.
Yep.
She had to back up, had to get a referral before she even got there. So she got the referral. She goes to the clinic. There's no appointments. So I'm out there looking for doctors in her physical area that I know could be able to help her.
Yep.
And that's basically because I know how to navigate the system. And that is another benefit in working with me is I can
Sure.
help you figure out what to say and what to ask for. So I'm coaching her, like, you have to tell them, you have to sound really sick, and you have to tell them the seizures are getting worse.
Mm.
You need to see a doctor right away. So, I mean, the fact that they're not accepting patients. I mean, could you imagine if she didn't have someone to call? She would just be sitting there waiting and worrying and having seizures. To me, that's unacceptable. And I
Yes.
think all of the vulnerabilities of our healthcare system were brought to light with COVID. All of them. We didn't have enough masks. We didn't have enough gowns. We didn't have enough, you name it,
Yeah.
ventilators. And then nurses were worked to death, literally. And we're not doing things the way that we should.
You're so on point with that. And now that we talk about a mental health crisis in the country and what we feel is such major stress issues, I know it's here in the Northeast, you can't easily find a therapist or a psychiatrist. It's phone call after phone call. I hear from everybody. Can't find anybody. And now
Right.
in your plan. And then you have to worry about maybe paying out of pocket just to find somebody who's good.
Exactly.
And I'm going to say this here, and people may disagree with me, but a lot of the clinics that you find providers at, sometimes not the best care, and maybe they're overworked, but there's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's a big
challenges.
component of it.
It's a big
Yeah,
component. Yeah,
absolutely a big component of it, because even the new phone line 988 for mental health,
yeah,
they're just over inundated
I'll bet.
with so many calls. So many of us are really struggling. And
Yeah,
first of all, it's not a stigma anymore. Um, the senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman,
yeah,
is, big guy. I mean, huge. You ever stood next to him? He's huge. I mean, he's just a big human being. And as a man, to stand up and say, "I need help," I really am very proud of that example that he's setting.
agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
much respect, and you kind of blaze some trails for a lot of us. We're just about out of time, but you just brought up a great point in what you offer, and that's help navigating the healthcare system. So if anybody's
Yeah.
dealing with that, especially if you have older folks that you care for, sometimes the stress can be so much that you can't even do it alone. And of course, you have to work, take care of your family as well. Um,
Right.
and that's just one aspect of what you offer, but also helping people be more mindful. And of course, you have your book, 7 Mindful Questions.
Correct.
Tell everybody your website.
www.lisa, Lisa, Nezneski, Nezneski.com.
Yeah, and you'll make it a non-stress situation guiding somebody. Just reach out. Yeah, I know, Lisa, you want to help people, and you've got the background, and you walk the walk and talk the talk, and it's always great talking with you.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll talk soon. No stress. Let's make this stress. We're doing this on a Monday. It's stress-free Monday. If we can. Of course, just did the time change, and we got to get some sleep, but that's besides the point. We'll catch up next time. Thank you so much.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye
You
now.
too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.